Did you know Variety, the children's charity, is the entertainment charity started by a group of show business people who found an abandoned baby in a theatre way back in 1928. These kind-hearted performers raised so much money to help the lost child that they began helping other children, and Variety, the children's charity, was born. Read the full story and support the entertainers charity that supports kids in need today. Visit variety.org.au. You're listening to the School of Hard Knock Knocks podcast with me, Maury Morgan.
Ladies and gentlemen, your next comedian.
Shouldn't drink on an empty head, you know that, don't you?
That is the shittiest heckle I have ever heard in my life.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
What's a bucket list?
You have dangerously underprepared yourself for the shit that is about to get real.
Damian Callinan is one of Australia's most versatile performers. Actor, writer and comedian all rolled into one. As you'll hear in this School of Hard Knock Knocks podcast, Damian's journey to comedy began as dabbling in theatre, then dying at the Espy, competing at Raw Comedy before jumping into movies, including his most recent comedy movie, The Merger. Damian Callinan is a Melbourne International Comedy Festival gala and roadshow performer and one of Australia's funniest comedians, so I'm sure you'll enjoy this episode. And if you're interested in kickstarting your stand-up comedy career, be sure to visit www.schoolofhardknockknocks.com and enrol in one of our monthly stand-up comedy courses. Now, here's Damian Callinan.
I've been doing a little bit of research and I've found that 9 out of every 10 people who dance at weddings shouldn't. But when people get on the dance floor, they lose it. Now, the first people to come onto the wedding dance floor are what I like to call the dag circle. Now, the dag circle is comprised of all those women in the sensible Christian frocks and slip-ons. And all the men look like they haven't been shopping since Men's Land in Warrnambool closed in 1985. And they all get together in a circle up the dance floor. The music may not have even started. They don't care. And they're doing this. And one by one, like a ritual sacrifice, they get pushed into the middle. I don't know what to do. Oh, God. This is so embarrassing. All right. Oh, God, I'm exhausted. And you guys are mad. That's why I joined Intro Line. Now, the dag circle break it up for everyone else. They break the ice. The next guy on the dance floor he's at every wedding. He's called Bazza. Now, no one knows Bazza. The bride's side don't know him, the groom's side don't know him. He's just there. He walks out on the dance floor. He's got a silver grey mullet you could scrub a pot with. He's got a dinner jacket on, but he's got jeans on. Yeah, I'll wear jeans for a wedding. I don't give a shit.
Good morning, Damian.
G'day, Maury.
How you doing, mate? Are you in Melbourne or are you still in Wagga Wagga?
No, Melbourne. Wagga wanted me, actually, to be there for Australia Day.
Oh, yeah?
I got asked to be the Australia Day ambassador for Wagga this year.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably tells me where I am in the world.
Yeah.
I did pass it up, though.
Oh, you did pass it up? Okay. Well, there's a very large Aboriginal community in Wagga, so it's probably, you're showing respect in that sense.
Well, interestingly, last year, Joe Williams, who was a local Indigenous boxer from Wagga, he was the Australia Day ambassador. Mm-hmm. And he refused to stand during the national anthem.
Right.
So they were already reeling from last year's controversy. So I don't think they needed Callinan there whipping in his political two bobs worth.
Oh, there you go.
Very nice of them to ask.
Oh, yeah.
But no. But no, I wrapped up in Wagga. We were filming there in kind of October, November. So,
well, let me take a step back for the listeners because they might not understand the relationship between Wagga and you. So, we all know you as a comedian, both on stage and on film. The most recent film that you've been in production, I think you're in post-production right now. It hasn't come out.
We are, yeah.
And it's called The Merger, and you filmed it almost entirely in Wagga Wagga. Was that right?
Yeah, Wagga was our base. We filmed.
Yep.
Mainly in the outlying towns, to be honest, of towns Ganmain and Yerong Creek and the delightfully named Downside. Mm. There is no upside. It's just downside. It's so we spent a lot of time in those little outlying towns, and Wagga was our base. But I had created a great relationship with the town previously, having shot another feature film in that area called Backyard Ashes, which came out in 2013.
Right.
Which I was in the kind of lead ensemble. And the director of this film, The Merger, directed that film as well. So we've been working in partnership to develop it. So, yeah.
Comedy and sport. Yeah,
that seems to be the flavour.
You're going to get typecast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go back a step and we'll come back to Wagga, or the outlining towns of Wagga, and talk more about The Merger a little bit later. But I want to go way, way, way back. I want to go back. Now, when I do my research with my interviewees, comedians, I go extensively, well beyond Wikipedia. And
it's been a great chat, Murray, and I'll see you a little bit later. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Bye. Well, I do. Yeah, sorry, but 1997, you appear in online social media. To be honest, I didn't go to the State Library of Victoria and look up the archives. It was all online. But you're invisible until 1997, and then you just not only do you just appear, but you appear with amazing names beside you: Dave O'Neill, Carl Barron, Greg Fleet, Christine Basil, CJ Fortuna, who just did our stand-up comedy course in Melbourne last week. For a show called The Headliners, which I think Glenn Robbins produced. One of the producers.
Okay.
Yeah, does that sound familiar?
Was that keep talking about Headliners and it might come back to me.
Well, I don't know. You were filmed in 1997. I don't know if you were on stage with these people. You played yourself.
Yeah.
And you did stand-up comedy with these names. But that was 1997.
Well, to fill in the gaps, I did essentially come from nowhere in that I was a teacher for the first sort of 12 years of my adult working life. I had been dabbling in improvisation and kind of amateur and profit share theatre. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of appeared on the scene reasonably quick. I started doing stand-up, and then I won the Make Me Laugh Award in Adelaide, and I came runner-up in Raw Comedy in 97, would have been.
There you go, yes.
And, so I kind of found myself in Edinburgh, like within 12 months of starting comedy.
Yep.
And I don't specifically remember headliners, but, there were things like, I was on TV with Raw Comedy and a couple of Channel 31 spots. And kind of next to big names and being introduced by Scared Word Little Guys. And
yep.
It was kind of a fascinating time to just go from, teaching drama to largely disinterested but gorgeous students out in Broadmeadows.
Yeah.
Probably the best training ground for stand-up, really, doing four drama classes a day, double periods with the youth of that area.
Yeah, right. They weren't interested at all. Yeah?
Oh, look, they were, to be honest. They're disinterested in most things other than drama because I just try to make it as fun as possible. And that seemed to work for me.
That's good. So you went for drama. You did have a background then in performance, which is a good start.
Yeah. I'd started just as a primary classroom teacher, and I'd gone back and done a grad dip in performing arts, and that's what sort of started twisting me into. I literally tried everything, Murray. I did kind of earnest and wanky mask workshops.
Yeah.
And I was part of a thing called Theatre of the Oppressed, a troupe.
Okay. Theatre
of the Oppressed was started by a guy called Augusto Boal, who's a South American theatre maker and political activist.
Yep.
The Theatre of the Oppressed is about you create a performance to a group of people based on their experience, and then they replay that performance, and the audience can say stop and step in to the role of the protagonist and try and subvert and avert the course of the disaster that's unfolding.
Right.
So I found myself doing that, in front of thousands of social workers, and in one beautiful case, it was for a thing called Women in the Catholic Church.
Yep.
And it was about misogyny in the Catholic Church. So I get to play this horrible, rancid Catholic parish priest, and I had like ex-nuns and feminist Catholics basically just tag teaming like a wrestling match, just to come inside and just say what they'd always wanted to say to someone like that.
Wow.
The scene completely disappeared. They just started parading me, and I was just, I had to stay character, so I just continued to be an arse.
Yep.
So I pretty much dabbled in everything. And one day I wandered into the Espy in St Kilda to meet a mate who I'd met when I'd been living in Japan.
Yep.
He was late, and I wandered into the Gershwin room.
Yeah.
And the waiting room was on, which is the old, which was the place. If you were starting comedy 20 years ago, that was where you started in Melbourne. And I watched about 3 or 4 tryout comics in a row, and I'd never seen tryout comedy. I had no idea it existed.
Yep.
I'd only ever seen like people at the top of their game. You know, the joke, people like Richard Stubbs and Rachel Berger, and all of a sudden I'm watching just nufties get up and fail. And I went, I can do that.
Tryout, for reference, is what we call open mic today, yeah?
Yeah. And I went, I can do that. And so about 2 or 3 months later, I got up on stage at the Espy, and I was right, I could do that. I died horribly. But
you could stand up on stage and talk into a microphone. Comedy, though.
Well, I failed at even some of the basics, to be honest, Murray. I was so nervous I couldn't get the microphone out of the cradle, and it actually forms the basis of when I do comedy workshops to kids. I talk about that first gig and learning all the mistakes.
Right.
And on stage, and that's unfortunately how it has to happen with comedy. You can only learn it by failing. Yeah,
failing is important. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. So you went from, what year was this?
That was 90. I think that first gig was like late 96.
96, okay.
I think I did one gig late 96, and then kind of, I was kind of lucky in a way. I had a theatre show starting rehearsal the next day, and I died. Like, I have some stories you can almost see the movie storyboard of the event, and that I can still see. Even the soundtrack of hearing. Yep. There was so much silence in the room, I could actually hear the glasses being cleaned at the back of the room. So I told the story the next night at rehearsals. In fact, we'd been asked to. They said, I'd tell a story of something that happened this week. Yep. And I went on for about 20 minutes and got heaps of laughs from telling the story of the death on stage. And comedians and actors in particular have this fear of stand-up comedy, so they were like on the edge of their seats. And I learned the lesson then. I went, okay, you're a storyteller.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really done that the first time. So, so that kind of helped. But then I was kind of involved in a whole lot of stuff for 4 or 5 months and didn't get back up. I knew I was going to.
Yep. You overcame that fear. So was there a moment, did you go into, because you went into movies, I think one of your first movies was around 2000, so about 4 years later, and was called Off-Road, which I believe you wrote and starred in. Was there a...
Off-Road was actually a series, which for the Comedy Channel, which Lawrence and Mooney and I did together. So that was, I think that was my first proper series.
Yep. So what was the gap there? Did you perform? Did you start your stand-up and start getting paid gigs between 96 and 2000? Oh,
totally. Yeah. In fact, all of my TV and film stuff just came from just sheer hard work on the festival and club circuit. So early on, when I did raw comedy, at that point, because of my theatre background, I found, and improvisation too, I found that my writing was a bit more theatrical, and I wasn't quite as... It took me seriously about 3 or 4 years to find my own skin on stage as myself doing stand-up. Yep. I'm now as comfortable doing both, but it happened a lot faster when I started doing character, and there was a particular juncture where I started writing these jokes that just didn't sound like I would say them. And so I started doing this voice and, kind of almost mid one gig, and people started laughing at it. Like, the same jokes were getting much bigger hits. Yep. So the next gig I thought, I'm just going to do the whole gig as that guy. And I did, and it worked. and then slowly I evolved, and this guy became part of a two-man. He was part of a duo, but he didn't have any of the talents or the equipment, and the other guy doesn't show up. And this slowly evolved, and that became my thing. I became this guy called Roman, and I'd always have two microphones set up. I'd get introduced as a duo, and he would just have to cope with it.
Yeah, right.
And that's what I did at Raw. I did in Edinburgh, and it made me jump a lot more quickly through the ranks, I suppose. But it also made people go, "That's all you do." So I killed him off when I came back from Edinburgh.
Yep.
But I still found that I kept jumping to characters, and so then I started working with Lawrence Mooney, and I started doing shows together quite early, and we similarly we kind of jumped away from stand up. Our first show was a bit of a parody of the stand up world, to be honest. And that kind of got noticed too, because we were a bit older when we started. We were not so much, well, we were cynical, but we were able to analyse the world rather than just be consumed by it. So, the first few years was me jumping around between character and stand-up and working with Mooney, and then I started doing solo shows, which were largely character-based.
Right.
So that's what led to the TV stuff. And Off-Road came from Marianne Carroll, who was at Comedy Channel, came and she saw me at the Espy first and then saw Lawrence and went, she basically went and come up with an idea.
Yep. Oh, perfect. So then obviously there's a lot that's happening that we don't see, but then you appear on the Melbourne International Comedy Festival Gala. Now, from where I stand, I feel that this is one of the it's a big highlight of a comedian. It sort of announces that they've made it, certainly in Australia. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, totally. Particularly for Melbourne comics, but in general,
Yeah, and where were you when you got that call or the letter or the tap on the shoulder that we want you in the Gala? So for those people listening to this podcast again, the Gala is really the highlight, the sort of almost the best of performance. I should say it's a cleaner version because it is, I think, PG rated, so it does go to television. So some hilarious comedians can't get on just simply because their material's not suitable.
Or their stuff doesn't go to air.
Yeah, that's right. But it's still, it's very high caliber. People like Jeff Green, for example, international level comedians. Where were you when you got that call?
Well, it would have been Susan Provan who called me. Don't remember. This sounds bad, but it would have been, maybe my first Gala was 2001 or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, that was early. Yeah.
Look, I don't recall. I do remember that those phone calls were very important. That and getting asked to do the Comedy Festival Roadshow were big. And I kind of remember that more than the Gala when I finally got the phone call that you're doing the Roadshow.
Yep.
Partly because it meant work.
Yep.
6 or 7 weeks work, as well as the nod that we think you're worthy to represent the festival, best festival travelling in the country. Look, the Galas are brilliant days, though. They're like, they're really special days, turning up to the rehearsal. And as you said, it's the cream of world comedy. You've got, Rich Hall and Ed Byrne and Jenny Eclair, and just, you're watching, you're going, I'm rehearsing straight after Corky and the Juice Pigs or Phil Nickel or whatever. And then mixing with them in the green room afterwards, and you kind of go, I must be okay at this.
Well, that's very humble.
Then there's a wait to see whether you make the cut.
Right.
Because the show goes long. Everyone's supposed to, do a certain amount. I remember one year, one of the US comics did 14 minutes.
Oh.
And there were people on either side of the stage trying to get his attention. He just kept turning away from them. And, and some local comics have, they've forgotten the clock as well.
Yep.
So the times I've done it, I've done it 4 times, I think, and only once I didn't make the cut. And it was kind of unfortunate. It was only on the day I got called in the afternoon and said, sorry. And she explained the reason, and I actually did have a really good spot, but my spot was one story.
Okay.
And it was impossible to edit.
Oh.
Or shorten.
Yes.
It was written, I was kind of reading it as well, and she went, we just needed to lose 4 minutes. And
you were 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
Oh, that's
so rather than shaving 10 or 20 seconds off a lot of people,
Everyone.
I just went, we'll just cut that.
Oh, dear.
So I do remember, this is a true story, Kel Wilson came on after me, and Kel's one of my dearest friends, and I think she knows this story. She had a good spot. No drama, she had a good spot. I've seen her do better spots at the Gala. It was a solid spot. On the night when I was watching it on TV, and I can't remember how I knew this, but I was watching Kel make the cut.
Mm-hmm.
There was a laugh and then a cut to the audience. And I could tell that the cut to the audience and the laugh was from my routine. There was something that happened in the room that made me remember it specifically. Something happened or a noise or... And I went, well, at least my laugh got in the show. And it went to one of my mates.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. You warmed up the room nicely. Beautiful. Yeah. Well, I'm going to use your last comment as a bit of a segue. So you mentioned that the Melbourne International Comedy Festival Roadshow, which again, for those that don't know, the MICF doesn't just stop at the end of April. It goes on. Was it about a month or 2 months or something after that?
Usually, the main tours usually go through till the end of June. So it's like April, May, June, and then there's some satellite tours that happen later in Asia.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
India,
right. Singapore as
Malaysia.
well. Yep. Gotcha. So you did that, and recently, so Dane Simpson, who I know you know because he was one of your cast in The Merger, he last year did the Melbourne International Comedy Festival Roadshow, and he's been one of our guest teachers at the School of Hard Knock Knocks Stand-Up Comedy School. So that's how I know him. And he is from Wagga Wagga, and he was spending a lot of time, obviously, through Victoria and Bairnsdale. We had a funny chat about how to pronounce Bairnsdale, because he never pronounced Bairnsdale. So that was good before his act. And this is my segue into The Merger. So he was one of the cast. Did he have a speaking role?
He didn't. He was one of the featured extras. So just very quickly, the film is about it's based on one of my one-man shows. The Merger.
Yeah, that's right. Tell me, how did you convert from a stage show with one man into a whole show about immigrants and footballers?
Well, the background, it took a while, I can tell you. The background of the live show was that I was actually commissioned by Regional Arts Victoria and Vic Help to write a show about racism, but they gave me no brief.
Okay.
There was no, it has to be this and it has to address this. They just felt like using the arts as a means of addressing the problem of racism in regional communities was a good idea, and I agreed.
Yep.
Anyway, I'd already previously done a one-man show about this football club called the Bodgy Creek Roosters, and they went, you've kind of already got the characters. So very quickly, the conceit is this footy club's struggling, the town's dying, the coach who's just come back, a bit of a journeyman, had a short but tragically, abruptly ended footy career. He comes back, he coaches the team, he's got left-thinking ideas, he recruits refugees to make up the numbers and gets a grant to rebuild the club rooms using the refugees. That's the short arm. Yeah, so I did this as a one-hander for, I first did it in 2010 and got nominated for the Barry Award that year, and then it kept going. It just had legs everywhere I took it, even in the non-AFL states it worked. And it always had a very filmic structure to it. One of the characters was a little boy who had a camera and he was sort of making a documentary about the team.
Yep.
So, yeah, if it was one of those ones after the show, people would go, that should be a film, that should be a film. That just kept happening.
Yeah.
And I started tinkering with my mate Gavin Basketball, brilliant Hobart comedian. We started kind of playing around with the first draft, and then after I did Backyard Ashes, Mark Grenzel, the director, he came to the live show and he said, let's work together.
Yep.
So, yeah, very slowly we got film development from Screen New South Wales. He gave me a mentor to work with because I'd never written a screenplay before.
No.
I was just lucky, I guess. I just kept having people at the right time tap me on the shoulder and offer support.
Yep.
And, yeah, obviously the one-man show story structure is quite similar, but the two worlds are completely different. There's some of the same jokes are there, but probably the hardest part was turning Troy, who I play in the film. There's a character I've been doing on stage for almost 20 years now. Was turning him into a real figure because stage and screen is so different. The live performance thing, it's so much more arch and caricatured. Translating him into someone who is a believable human being took the longest in the writing process.
Yep. Oh, fantastic! And when do you think this will come out, where we can watch it?
We're hoping mid this year. We're in the process. There'll be test screenings happening over the next month. We're almost at what you call picture lock, where you can't change the images anymore. Mm-hmm. And then sound tracking, all that's happening as well.
Yep, fantastic.
But it's very exciting. It's looking great. We had an amazing cast. Dane was part of a large group of locals that we used, including a lot of refugees who played. So Dane was one of the other players. Yep, he never got to speak, but I think his name. I'm trying to remember what his player's name was. Might have been TikTok.
TikTok, okay.
Everyone had stupid,
Yeah, nicknames. I saw a couple of photos on the set, and it looked like you gave him maybe a medium-sized jersey when he probably needs an extra large. It was,
we had a there was a lot of challenging on the fabric of the jumpers. A lot of the extras were big fellas, so it helps because it makes the Bodgy Creek Roosters look genuinely shit house, which they are at the start. To his credit, Dane wore it, proudly.
Oh, he's a comedian, it's all for the laughs. Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's a good fella, Dane.
Very good. Can he kick a football?
He wasn't too bad, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a good fella. He's done some great work running comedy in the River Arena.
Yeah, he is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good segue because you did talk about being nominated for your Barry Award, I think 3 times. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. You've won a lot of awards, and if you look at your bio, which I did, there's a string, you've got a fantastic resume. How important are those awards for the longevity of a stand-up comedian, or a comedian in general, because you do more than stand-up?
Yeah, look, that's a really good question. It doesn't mean shit to the audience that are in front of you, though. Mm-hmm. And while I pulled it out here in the, interview, it felt like the right time to say it, but the last thing I do is tell the audience that you're award-winning.
Yeah.
When you're in the world of writing your CV and putting your website together, you need to do that. But look, I don't think most of my fellow comedians would know, apart from my peers, same age or whatever, would be aware of all those awards in the past. Look, I think what they do, they help you at the time.
Yep.
To give you recognition, and they help, nominations tick your ticket sales for the next week.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, look, I guess it's more peer. It gives you recognition amongst your peers.
Right.
Generally speaking, even at the Melbourne Comedy Festival, I would imagine 95% of the audiences aren't aware of the award processes,
right?
And who's won, and should we go and see that because that person's won the award?
Well, I choose my wine based on the stars, the gold stars on the side. So I'd probably choose my comedy. If I don't know the name, I might do the same with comedy.
Maybe we should wear them on stage, like
Colonel Gaddafi. Yeah, I mean, you would be.
Yeah, just I'd probably have scoliosis. Just from right. I'd have to balance them. Yeah. That's
right. Well,
how conceited did that sound?
Oh, yeah. I'll emphasise it so it sounds even more so. So what you've kind of talked about in that sense, what advice would you give so people who listen to this podcast, they're not just comedy lovers, they're actually people who are starting their comedy career, maybe they're a couple of years in, they're doing the open mic, as you called the tryouts in the olden days. What advice would you give to these people right now to, have a career as award-winning as yourself?
Look, in my case, I can only speak in my case because there's a lot of people who forge careers taking a very different path, but diversity is what's helped me. In the early period, and I had people actually say this to me, they felt the diversity slightly hampered me because it was harder to pin down what I did. Because you look at a Carl Barron or you look at a Hughesy and go, that's who they are. They do that style of stand-up, and the media and everyone can kind of get an angle on it. Because I was constantly jumping from character to character and show different styles of comedy. I'd have some people see me do stand-up, straight stand-up, and go, oh, I've never seen you do straight stand-up before. Or they'd see me do character and go, oh, I've never seen you do character before. It was harder for people to get a bit of a bead on who Damian Callinan was as a performer. But the longevity, though, of sticking out that path has paid off for me, I reckon, in that now I kind of exist as all of those things. I can do straight stand-up. Most of my shows, any attempt I've ever had to write a straight stand-up show has ended up turning into a story anyway. But yeah, now it's kind of posited me both as a writer and an actor and a comedian. And if someone says, "Oh, you're an actor," I'm happy to be recognised as that, and vice versa. But that took a long time, for that to bed down.
So in short, for comedians starting up now,
I would say use the skills that you've got. If you can act, you can do characters. If you can write things that aren't necessarily straight stand-up, play around with all of it, see what you enjoy. And the diversity for me makes life more enjoyable too, because I'm constantly moving from, doing a solo show to doing a show about swing dancing with a swing dance partner, doing a wine bluff show with Paul Collegia, just jumping around. I love that. I love being able to know that I'm not saying the same words over and over again. I don't think I could have ever done that, just mining my own life for material as myself constantly.
Yeah, right.
Many people have done it very successfully, but it just wasn't me.
Okay. So your comedies is through characters, not necessarily the hardships of your life that you've endured.
It has been at times. I did a show called Space Nuts about my journey through male infertility, and that was very biographical. But I tend to be able to write better about the world and comment on the world through story and narrative.
Right. And the coming show that you're doing with Paul Collegia is called The Wine Bluffs. Is that what you're doing? Are you doing that in Perth and Adelaide as well, or is that just for Melbourne International Comedy Festival?
No, Wine Bluffs is a show we've been doing on and off for the last couple of years. We're doing a few. We're doing 2 nights at Melbourne Comedy Festival. Yep. A return season, and then we've got gigs all over the place. We're doing the Adelaide Cabaret Festival, Tamworth Taste Festival. Who would have known? We're doing Dubbo, Toowoomba. But the most immediate tour I'm doing is Swingman, which is a newer show I do where I learned how to swing dance in 4 months.
Good.
And I'm doing Bunbury Perth Fringe in February.
Yes.
And then Adelaide Fringe late Feb, March.
Fantastic.
And then national tour later in the year.
Oh, good. So busy first part of the year then.
Yeah, I like festival season.
And then the movie comes out, and then you'll be probably doing a lot of launches and interviews and all
World
that.
Premiere, rolling out
World premieres, red carpet stuff. Well, we hope to be there and cover that. Oh, fantastic. Well, Damian, if someone wants to get in contact with you, they've got another idea for your type of, either as a writer, as a performer, how do they get in contact with you?
I have a website, damiancallinan.com.au, or you can look me up on Facebook, Damian Callinan Comedian.
Fantastic. Well, that's it worked for me.
And Twitter, at Damian Callinan. Find me. I'm not hard to find. I don't hide.
No, but you're a busy man, so thank you very much for your time today. Yeah. It's been interesting. You've resolved my worries that pre-1997 you were invisible. I was like, whoa,
I do like that I could possibly fill that in. I could maybe do That could be my next show.
Yeah, there's no reference to you being a teacher.
What happened between 97?
Exactly. Yeah, did you have a boogie board incident in Bali? You know, what was the story?
Possibly, yeah.
Excellent.
Well, I'll work... When I get to that bit, I'll workshop it with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Well, maybe I can do it, and then you can give me all your laugh track.
Sure.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Oh, good. That was a callback for all the students listening to this podcast.
Yeah, I liked it.
Oh, cheers, mate.
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, Damian, thank you very much for your time today. It's been a pleasure, and I do enjoy your work. And I look forward to seeing one of your shows coming up, either in Adelaide or in Melbourne.
Thanks, Murray.
Thanks, Damian. Bye.